Heavenly Father, thank you so much for letting us gather here today. And thank you for Brother Jim and all of his wisdom and teaching your word to us. Please be with us this week as we go out into the world. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Deuteronomy 17 and verse 6, I've quoted this verse, or part of this verse, a million times in the last 40-something years. This is one of the most important verses in the Bible right now. I want you to understand that, especially at the first part of it. Man would make a lot less mistakes if he'd follow this.
On the testimony of 2 or 3 witnesses a man shall be put to death, but no one shall be put to death on the testimony of only one witness.
All right. By 2 or 3 witnesses let everything be established. All right. How many times have you heard me say that? By 2 or 3 witnesses let everything be established. Is that what the Bible says? It says that we talked about, that's talking about the death penalty there also. But that word, by 2 or 3 witnesses let everything be established, is a very important rule in the Bible. That's what you call a basic Bible rule. Okay? This is something that's very basic in the Bible. By 2 or 3 witnesses let everything be established. Okay? Now, we're in the Gospel according to Luke. And the title of the message today is The God of the Resurrection. The God of the Resurrection. Now, it says by 2 or 3 witnesses let everything be established. And at the end of that verse, at the very end of that verse, what does it say? At the very end of that verse.
Nothing can happen with just one.
What? Nothing can be established. You cannot convict a murderer of murder and execute him with just one witness. Why just one witness?
Because
That person could have something against him. That person could be lying. If they got 3 people to lie, when they tried to convict Jesus of basically of a capital crime, they couldn't even get the witnesses to agree. It was defunct. And what did Pilate say? It's defunct. Forget it. Your own law says that what you're doing is wrong. Okay? So let's remember that now. By 2 or 3 witnesses let everything be established. No crime. Whatever. The death penalty was exacted. The death penalty is the foundation of all societies. Did you know that? Go back in Noah's time. The foundation of that, if a man sheds another man's blood, by his blood shall be shed. Okay? That's, what does it do? That puts fear in people, doesn't it? If you kill somebody, you're going to get killed. All right? And of course, they tried to do this without witnesses. You know, if they could get by without witnesses. America would have never have had carried out capital punishment on one person wrongly if they'd have gone by this rule, would they? They've killed a lot of people. A lot of people have been killed because they didn't follow this rule. Okay? Now let's go back to the position that we're taking today. By 2 or 3 witnesses let everything be established. By 2 or 3 witnesses. How many people did Jesus raise from the dead? That we know of in the Bible. That how many that we have evidence of, that we have eyewitnesses of. How many, Brother David? 3. All right. 3 times. All right. 3 times. All right. 3 different times. John 11, 1 through 46. John 11, 1 through 46. I'm going to just go there and you know, I'm not going to read every verse. All right. Lazarus. What does Lazarus mean? Lazarus is a shortened form of the Hebrew. Eliezer. Lazarus, actually the Hebrew for Lazarus is Eliezer. What does Eliezer mean? Eliezer was, remember, on Wednesday night, I don't know how many of you were here, but we talked about Eliezer in the Old Testament being a type of John the Baptist in the New Testament, which was a friend of the bridegroom. Okay, Eliezer means God is help. Now Lazarus, since you drop off that, it has Lazarus at the end of it. That means no help. No help. Okay, Eliezer means God is help, but Lazarus is actually a shortened form of Eliezer. Okay. Now, in John the 11th chapter, we have Lazarus getting sick, and then Lazarus has died, and he's been dead for 3 days. Now, back at this period of time, they did not embalm anybody. At this period of time in Israel, they were embalming people in Egypt, of course. But Israel did not embalm people. And what is embalming people? They first pretty much disembowel them, okay, drain their blood out and all that kind of stuff, and pour perfume and all this stuff on them. You know, that's what they were doing, and that's what they do today, basically. But they didn't do anything. All they did was wrap them up and pour perfume all over them. But they hung around there for 3 days. Why?
Because at that time they felt that the spirit stayed around the body for 3 days.
The spirit stayed around the body for 3 days, and it might come back in.
Because there was times when they thought somebody was dead.
People actually went into comas.
Yeah.
Okay? I'm bringing out some pretty gruesome facts here today. Okay? This is gruesome stuff, but this is what the subject, okay? How many of you have ever heard that a person's hair continues to grow after they're dead and their fingernails continue to grow? Okay, is that true or false?
It's true.
It's false.
You know what, Jim? I read speculation.
It's false. I'll tell you why people's fingernails grow and their hair grew. Because they weren't dead. They buried them when they were dead, when they were alive. And their hair continued to grow and their fingernails continued to grow. And they dug them up. They had maybe been in a coma for 3 or 4 months with their hair growing and their fingernails growing. And so they grew out. But they were not dead. Their hair does not grow and their fingernails do not grow when you're dead. But when they buried live people, they continued to do that. There have several people in the past been buried alive that they dug up and they revived them. Did you know that? One was Edgar Allan Poe, according to some tales.
You can put bells, you know.
Yeah, they would put bells in coffins that they could ring it. You know, they ring the bell. If they woke up, they could ring the bell. But all right, now for 3 days they considered the spirit to hang around the body. Now this guy had been dead more than 3 days. And that's a type of what? Why would Christ stay in the ground 3 days? I don't believe in this short business about being crucified on Friday and rose on Sunday. That just threw away a lot of biblical foundation. That's the Catholic term, the Catholic idea, and we don't need to follow Catholicism according to that. Jesus Christ was crucified on Wednesday and he rose on Sunday. All right? He was in the bed, in the tomb, in the bed in the tomb, on the table in there for at least 3 days.
That's to make sure everybody would
Yes,
know that he was
to
dead.
make sure that he had been dead for 3 days. He didn't come out. Okay, that's very important. I want you to understand what we've gone by is the Passion Week and all that stuff. That's Catholicism. A lot of people follow Catholicism, all right, but that's not what the Bible teaches. That's not what Hebrew custom teaches either, is it? They had, 3 Sabbaths that week, and that week that Jesus was buried? There's more than one Sabbath, all right? Let's go on a little further. Jesus was buried for 3 days to prove that he was dead, that his spirit was not hovering around him, and revived. If he was raised in less time, then we could not prove that Jesus really died in the grave, because they hung around the grave for 3 days. Okay? Now Lazarus had been dead for 3 days. The spirit is gone. So Jesus comes, and he raises him from the dead. And a bunch of Pharisees around there, the scribes are there, the rulers of the synagogues, what you mean the head of the synagogue, the big shots there, all these people around, and when they saw Lazarus come out of that grave with his grave clothes on, what did they try to do to Lazarus? What were they going to do to Lazarus, according to the synoptics? What did they want to do to Lazarus? They wanted to murder him and put him back in the ground. They didn't want evidence. They did not want evidence that Jesus had raised the dead. He had the power over death and hell. That's right. Death and the Sheol. He had power over death and Sheol. Okay, now we got Lazarus being raised from the dead. He said, Lazarus, come forth. Where's another one? I actually already covered it in the Gospel of Luke. In Luke, the 7th chapter, verses 11 through 17. There was a widow of Nain. Her son was dead. They were going to bury him. He was dead. Okay? Let's go back there and look at that just a little for a moment. By 2 or 3 witnesses, let what? Everything be established. And verse 11 says, and it came about soon afterwards that he went out to a city called Nain, and his disciples, that's his what? Habitual learners, this group that was following him all over, were going along with him, accompanied by a large multitude of Chloe or Close, which is at least 5,000 to 10,000 people now. There's a lot of witnesses here. By 2 or 3 witnesses, let everything be established. Remember that. There were at least 12 disciples with him all the time, if not more. There were more than 12 disciples, weren't there? There were 12 apostles. We're going to see them just later on. Verse number 12. And as he approached the gate of the city, behold, a dead man was being carried out, the only son of his mother, and she was a widow, and a sizable crowd from the city was with her. Evidence, witnesses. Witnesses and evidence. And the Lord saw her, and he felt compassion on her, and he said, do not weep. And he came up and touched the coffin, and the bearers came to a halt, and he said, young man, I say to you, arise. And the dead man sat up and began to talk. Actually, he kept on talking. And Jesus gave him back to his mother. And fear gripped them all, and they kept on glorifying God, saying, a great prophet has arisen among us, and God has visited his people. All right, now let's go on. Number 3 dead people. The third dead person. All right? We have evidence of at least 3 people being raised from the dead. Why 3? By 2 or 3 witnesses, let everything be established. How many witnesses were here? 5,000 to 10,000 people saw these different miracles. All right? Verse number 40. Right off the bat, we got 5,000 to 10,000 people here. That's the first thing that takes place. It says oklos. Oklos equals 5 to 10,000. 5 to 10 kilos. All right, 5 to 10,000 people. And Jesus returned. The multitude welcomed him, was cheering him, for they had all been waiting for him, standing on their tiptoes, with their eyes wide open, waiting for him. And behold, there was a man named Jairus. There's an Old Testament guy by the name of Jair. Who was it, Jair, in the Old Testament? Huh? Jair. Jair and Jairus is the same thing. Jairus is Greek for Jair. Jair means enlightened or lightened one. Okay? All right, and he was a judge, by the way, in the Old Testament. And this guy was named after the judge, the Old Testament judge. And behold, there was a man named Jairus, or Jair. And he had become an official. Actually, it means the head of a synagogue. So who is this guy? This is a head witness, isn't it? This guy is one of the rulers of a synagogue. He's like the sergeant of arms. He's the one that went out and arrested. Synagogues were courthouses. Did you know that? What took place in synagogues in Israel? Matter of fact, you had to have at least 10 people to have a quorum for a synagogue, didn't you? Wherever it was in the world. And girls didn't count. All right? A boy, when he got to the age of about 12 or 15 years old, then he could count as a quorum. The girls couldn't count. They had to at least have 10 men for a synagogue to take place. But in that synagogue, they had a ruler in every synagogue, which was the head judge. He was like a judge. In the synagogues, if you bought a piece of property, if you bought a donkey, or a pot, or anything that you had, you went to the synagogue, and in the judge's presence, he would take a scribe, and the scribe would write down that contract. And you'd have a legal written contract for everything. Whether you were buying pots, whether you were buying a plow, or you were buying somebody's daughter. And they would sit down, and they would make this, and they would fill out this document. All right? And the judge was there. That's this guy right here. If you got married, if you got a divorce, any of these legal things, if you bought property, if you had a lawsuit against somebody for some wrongdoing that was done to you, if somebody got killed, if somebody stole something from you, you went to this guy. This is the guy you go to. He's the judge. And they would try the case. And there could be capital punishment carried out. When Stephen was stoned, remember Stephen's sermon in the 7th chapter of the book of Acts? When Stephen was stoned, who was the head of the synagogue of the Sanhedrin that said stone him? Who was the guy? Paul. His name was actually Saul at that time. Saul was one of these officials. Okay? He was the official over the Sanhedrin. All right? The Sanhedrin is a big shot court, just like the Supreme Court. Each town had a synagogue in it. And this man was a synagogue of some town. He was a very rich, powerful man. And so Jesus is going to choose to resurrect one of his family. So there is without doubt, and this is the third one. By how many witnesses? By 2 or 3 witnesses, let everything be established. So how many Gospels do we have? More than enough. 4. We have 3 synoptics, which synoptics means what? Synoptos. Ophthalmologist. That means to look together. 3 of them, Matthew, Mark, and Luke, look at Jesus' life in the same way. John is kind of a weirdo. And I'm not saying that in a degrading his gospel at all, but it's totally different than the others, because John is looking at Jesus Christ as God in flesh. The other look at him in different ways. Okay? Jairus. And he had become the official of the synagogue, and he fell at Jesus' feet, and he kept on begging him to come to his house. I have an only daughter. That's her right over there. That's my only daughter. That's my little shadow, as people called her for the last 20 years. An only daughter, monogenes. That's what it says in Greek. That's just like God gave his only begotten. That's a monogenes. This man's only begotten daughter. Okay? Our word daughter comes right out of this word in Greek, by the way. And he had only one daughter, about 12 years old, and she was in the process of dying. That's what it says. She was in the process of dying. But as he went, the multitudes were pressing against him. I hope my brains come back before this message is over. I had a real low blood sugar a while ago. And I tried to eat enough to keep me going. But they're just scattered. Please forgive me. and the multitudes. How many people are there? 5 to 10,000 people are pressing against him. And a woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years. What is that term that women have, when they're having sometimes they bleed for many, many years, and they have to have a hysterectomy, okay? This is what is going on with this woman. This woman was hemorrhaging. She was hemorrhaging for 12 years. She was bleeding. I can guarantee you she was anemic. The poor woman was anemic. All right? And could not be healed by anyone. Now, the King James goes on and says that these doctors had taken all of her money and all this kind of stuff, but that's not in the original language. So we're going to leave that out because it's not there. Okay? And the woman had a hemorrhage for 12 years. She had been bleeding for 12 years and could not be healed by anyone. She couldn't be doctored. And came up behind him and touched the fringe of his garment. He had a long robe. Brother Roger, what do these robes entail among the Jewish people? What about a Jewish robe?
One of the things is it showed the lineage.
Oh, okay. Come up here and say that. Would you just jump right up here real quick? I want them to see this. I want them to hear this.
So one of the things is the fringe showed the lineage.
Showed the lineage of the man. All right? The lineage of the man. Welcome to our class. His garment told who he was. It has his initials and his whole lineage on it. And there was what on the bottom of the garment? Right on the bottom. Sewed on the bottom of it was what? The lineage and fringe. All right? That told the whole lineage of his family. And in that lineage was authority, wasn't it? Power. Okay? How many of you ever heard this before? I know you have, Roger. How many of you heard this before? I told you before, Brother John, I brought this out. How many of you haven't heard this before? All right. All right, he had a robe on that told who he was. Now, Jesus had two lineages, didn't he? Matthew tells of the lineage of Jesus as whom? As Joseph's son, legally, and the real rightful king of Israel. And the third chapter, or in the Gospel of Luke, tells his lineage as what? Through Mary's family, which goes back to the seed of the woman. He was born of the seed of the woman. And this is in Genesis 3:15. This is the first promise of the Messiah in the Bible. So he is not only the legitimate heir of the king of Israel through Joseph, which was his legal son, even though that was his stepson, but it was his legal son, as far as everybody else knew. And he had that lineage written on his garment. The lineage of his mother and his father were sewn on his garment. And when the woman came up, all right, see what happens. And she was dying, all right, and then all of a sudden a woman who had a hemorrhage for 12 years and could not be healed by anyone came up behind him and touched the fringe of his robe. Why did she touch the fringe? Because as every Jewish, when a person would come up and beg for mercy, they would grab onto the hinge of the lineage of that family. And they would beg, and that's what they would do. Now this woman went up and she grabbed a hold of his lineage on his garment, on his robe, which was a sign of authority and power. Okay? And immediately her hemorrhage stopped. And she could feel that she had been healed in her body. And Jesus said, "Who is it, the one who touched me?" All right, now how many people are here? 5 to 10,000 people or more. A lot of people around, and they're all close to him. But one of them reached down and touched the fringe of his garment, as if to beg for mercy, as they would a king or anyone. All right? And while they were all denying it, Peter said, "Master, there are thousands of people crowding around you. I'm translating this into so you'll know what it is. It's oklos, all right, which is 5,000 to 10,000 people. There's a lot of people there. How many people are at Valley Baptist Church this morning? This is a crowded place, isn't it? Probably 5,000 to 10,000 people coming here on Sunday morning, okay? Somewhere around there. That's a lot of people in it. How about if they all crammed around one Sunday school class? That's what's going on right here. They're all around one teacher. One teacher. Not scattered out with 250 Sunday school classes like we have here. They're all around one teacher. We got, 3 services going on, one after the other, and probably 300 Sunday school classes going on all over the place, or more. This is one teacher. And we're spread out, and we got more people following this one teacher than we have all at Valley Baptist Church this morning. And they're all crowded up against him. And they're all pressing against him. But Jesus said, someone touched me, for I was aware that dynamis had gone out from me. Dynamis. What's dynamis? Power. Dynamis. Dynamis. What word comes from that, Brother Mike? What word comes from this? What English word comes from dynamis? Dynamite. Dynamite's got a lot of nitroglycerin in it, doesn't it? If you get pure nitroglycerin, what do you got? A real, that's power. I'm going to tell you something. A little bit of nitroglycerin will blow up. You see that finger right there? It was blown off from there on out to the end a long time ago. They sewed it back together. It had too much nitroglycerin in a gun barrel. A lot. That thing went off like a grenade going off in my hands. And how many of you have seen that? How many of you have seen that? You've seen that pistol. Do you think somebody could live through that? Not really. It looks miraculously that I'm here. Had a lot of angels getting damaged right there.
That's the one you had in the shoebox you brought it.
Yeah, I brought it in a shoebox one time. It's in pieces, just pieces. Okay? Dynamite power. Power had gone out from me, he said. Verse number 47. And when the woman had seen, all right, when the woman had seen that she could not escape notice, she came trembling, all right? She was in great fear. And she fell down before him and she confessed. She declared in the presence of all the people for the reason why she had touched him and how she had been immediately healed. How many people witnessed this? We're right in the middle of Jesus going to raise the third dead man, pretty much. By 2 or 3 witnesses, let everything. We have evidence that Jesus raised 3 people, so that proved that he was the God of the resurrection. He had power over death. Okay? Now there's 5,000 to 10,000 people here witnessing that he healed this woman. And he's on the way to raise a dead person. And while he was still speaking, someone came from the house of the synagogue official saying, "Your daughter has died. Do not trouble the teacher anymore." All right? Your daughter has died. Do not trouble the teacher anymore. She's dead. Okay? Verse number 50. But when Jesus heard this, he answered him, "Do not be afraid." Look at that. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid. The word is phobu. What is phobu? What is the word that we get in English today from the Greek word phobu? Phobia. Phobia means what? Fear of something. All right? Fear of something. Do you have any phobias, Roger?
Oh, yeah.
How many of you ever dodged a bullet? Huh? Anybody ever dodged a bullet? How many of you ever heard a bullet go by you real close? I was over there in Jericho with Brother Madden. Remember I told you about Brother Madden, that great big tall Cajun that was my teacher and my buddy. We went all over the Middle East together. And we were out there at the tell of Jericho. What's a tell? As a mound. This is where occupations are. Lots of people been there for lots of years, okay? City is there in Jericho. And in the city here at Jericho, we were out there, and in the background we heard Marilyn, are you there? You're here. Marilyn, I let you listen to that tape. What did you say on that tape? What did you say about that tape? That's gunfire. That's gunfire. That's bullets flying. And not only are the bullets flying, but you can hear them go whing, whing, whing. I'm going to tell you something, people. That scares you. That scares you. Brother Madden said he was a brave man. He was at Anzio Beach for months under siege at Anzio Beach. He had to kill his best friend, Moxie Gumbo, in the trench over there at Anzio. Moxie Gumbo went crazy. He was a brave man that killed a lot of people. But Moxie Gumbo went crazy, and Brother Madden had to kill him with his .45. He shot and killed him. He said, I couldn't spare the men to hold him down. I had to kill him. He said, that man watched my back for 3 years. All through Africa and everything else. He said, I had to kill him. He said, he swung that bayonet at me and tried to cut my throat. And he said, I looked into his eyes and I saw phobia. Fear. He had gone crazy. And he pulled his .45 out and shot him. And killed him right there. Phobia. Brother Madden, when we were over there at Jericho, he said, Brother Phillips, makes me want to dig a foxhole. I haven't heard gunfire like this since World War II. The big one, WW2. When you get around stuff like that, it makes your hair stand on end. I remember the first time I ever went deer hunting, I went up on by Frazier Park up there, Mount Pinus. And I was on one side of a mountain over there, and I heard gunfire on the other one, and bullets were falling all around us. Some nut over there was shooting at us. Well, I was a pretty good shot, so I shot back at him. I didn't mean to kill him, but I shot close enough to the man that to tell him that I had bullets too. All right, and he shut up. That was the end of those bullets. But you know what? It was scary when you have bullets falling around you all over the place. Okay? That's fear. Because all of us have a fear for our lives. That's something that God puts in us, don't we? A fear to survive. Every animal has a survival fear in it. We have a certain amount of fear that keeps us alive. And he told them, don't be afraid. Don't fear any longer. Only what? Only believe, and she shall be made well. Only believe. Who did he tell this to? The Father. And all of the witnesses. By how many witnesses? By 2 or 3 witnesses, let everything be established, even murder. By one witness only, don't let it be established. Don't bring a judgment down by one witness only. So we got 5,000 people here. How many people that we have record of Jesus raising from the dead? 3 people. This is the third one right here. Verse number 51. And when he had come to the house, he did not allow anyone to enter with him except Peter, John, and James, and the girl's father and mother. And they kept on bawling and crying and ripping their clothes. That's what it means here. And they all kept on weeping and crying and ripping their clothes. And they would throw, what would they throw on top of their heads? Ashes. And when you get ashes in your eyes, what happens? It burns them, and tears go. They would throw ashes on their heads, and the ashes would get in their eyes to make more tears go. What is an ashes? What cleansing material is an ashes? Marilyn, do you know what's in there? What's in ashes? What? An ashes.
It's an acid.
It is an acid. It is lye. Lye. Lye soap, real lye soap is made from ashes. That's why they took the ashes of the red heifer and mixed it with water. That was a cleansing agent. That's like an antibacterial soap of that time. All right? That's lye. Lye is an acid, and it kills germs and bacteria, okay? Well, it also burns your eyes. I went out and took a shower the other day. I had been in the attic and banging my head. I had dents all over my head. This ceiling in the attic is real low, and pieces hang down from the ceiling like that much lower than others, and I would be looking at something and wham, and knock myself half down. And I had my straw hat on, and the straw hat just kept poking me in the head. And I used lye soap on my head, and when I put water in that lye soap on my head, I mean, tell you what, I knew the scratches were there. It stung. Well, they would throw the ashes in on their hair, and it would get down in their eyes and make more tears. The Jews believed in crying when somebody died. They believed in that. That was something that they even paid people to cry. Did you know that? They paid people that were professional mourners to come along and help them mourn. Okay? And when they had come to the house, he did not allow anyone to enter, and the girl's father and mother, and they were all weeping and lamenting, throwing ashes on their head, tearing their clothes up, and he said, "Stop weeping, for she has not died, but is asleep." Okay? Now, when you die, what does the body look like? Looks like it's asleep. It just kind of goes to sleep. Okay? And they began laughing. They literally, it says began there in my translation, but in the Hebrew, in the Greek, that is, what does it say? What kind of tense is that in Greek? Every time you see began in the Bible, what does the tense mean? What tense is it using? That's the imperfect tense. It keeps on going. It's one of them things that keeps on going. And they kept on laughing at him, knowing that she had died. The girl's dead. I mean, she has no pulse. She's not breathing anymore. She's died. And when a person dies, their eyes die. Did you know that? How many of you ever seen somebody die? How many of you ever seen an animal die? They have light in their eyes, and when they die, it is dead eyes. Dead eyes. Her eyes are dead. There's no life in her. There's no spirit in her. And he, however, took her by the hand and called, saying, Talitha Kume. That's what it says. In what kind of language did I just speak there, Brother Roger? Aramaic. All right. Maid arise. One time it quotes him as saying, Talitha Kume, maid arise. Okay? Right here it says, child or maid, arise. And it says it in Greek. Luke chose to write it in Greek instead of Aramaic. And her spirit returned. Her spirit was gone. Her spirit was gone. I've shown you this so many times, that ought to make you sick. But I'm going to show it to you one more time. Man is triune. He is body. What part of a person dies? What part of a person dies?
His body.
His body. The
Die.
spirit can't die. Here's the spirit. And what else do we have? We're triune now. What's the other part? The soul. We have soul, we have spirit, and body. Now, does your soul die? No. Does your spirit die? No. Does the body die? Yes, the body dies. It is a house. The body is a house of the soul and the spirit. Okay? In this present time and in space and time right now, your spirit and your soul are residing in your house, which is your body. When that spirit leaves your body, you are dead. It's gone. The soul and the spirit are gone. It doesn't hover around there for 3 days like the Jewish tradition said. It's gone. And the spirit returned, and she arose immediately. And he gave orders with authority, for something to be given her to eat. Someone give her something to eat. The word to eat in Greek in most places is kata estio. Kata estio. Kata estio. Right here it's phagain. Kata estio. What does kata estio mean? Kata means what in Greek? Kata and estio kata means down. How many of you had breakfast today? How many of you had a donut? You have a donut on a plate. All right? Now, Greek is pretty literal language, okay? Do you eat it up or do you eat it down? Huh? I want to ask you, do you eat your food up or do you eat it down? When your plate is there, you got a plate full of food. Do you eat it up or do you eat it down? You eat it down. He said, give her a plate so she can eat it down. Empty the plate. And she was hungry. All right? He said, give her something so she can eat it down. And her parents were absolutely struck out of their senses. They were dumbstruck. That's what it says. They were out of their minds with amazement. But he instructed them to tell no one what had happened. Now, how many of you ever heard of reverse psychology? What is reverse psychology? Bill?
That's when they do the opposite of what you're doing to get you well. I mean, it's kind of hard to explain. Let me see. I'm not good at explaining.
Well, okay, yeah, Mama makes a whole bunch of batch of cookies.
Yeah, and don't touch them.
And she says, don't touch them. Well, that ain't going to happen. So she puts them in a cookie jar, and she said, those are poison. I'm going to feed them to the rats. But I want you to eat all of them. Check it out. Just check out and see if the rat's going to die. What do you think it do? Reverse psychology, okay? Don't tell them. How many do you think? Did they not tell them? Here's the synagogue official. Do you think the man at the Sanhedrin court, do you think that they knew that when they tried Jesus? Some of these people knew all of these things. But they were lying. They were lying. The 9th chapter of the Gospel according to Luke. The 9th chapter of the Gospel according to Luke. Now go to the 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians. The 12th chapter of 1 Corinthians before we go there. 1 Corinthians chapter 12. All right. I want somebody to come up here and read that. Who's got 12:28? Who has 12:28? Who's got First? You got it. 1 Corinthians 12:28. Going to wear you out this morning coming up here.
I know. I figure if I come up a bunch, you won't get me at the end.
Oh.
And in the church, God has appointed first of all apostles, second prophets, third teachers, then workers of miracles, and those having gifts of healing.
Okay. All right. Is that all of it?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
Those able to help others, those with gifts of administration, and those speaking in different kinds of tongues.
All right. Now, what was the first gift placed in the church? According to 1 Corinthians 12:28, what was the first gift placed in the church? Apostles. All right. What does the word apostle mean? Apostello. Apo and stello. Now, I'm writing this in Greek. But these words came out of Greek right into English. Apo means what? That's a from. And then stello means what? Huh? To send. To send. Now, apostello is a very important term. Every ancient ruler in almost every ancient society, in the Korean society, in the Chinese society, what were the emperors, what were they considered? Sisters? That all of the emperors were looked upon as divine, weren't they? As gods? Well, the ruler of Egypt, the Pharaoh means what? The man that lives in the big house. That's what Pharaoh means. Pharaoh. All right? That's what it means. The man that lives in the big house. But what was Pharaoh looked upon as? His children were called children of what? Children of God. Okay? They were looked upon as gods. Okay? Now, these ancient rulers would send out, and what was the known language? Brother David? What was the known language of the whole world during this period of time?
Definitely
Greek. I don't care what the Jews say. I don't care what anything. They were speaking Greek all throughout all these lands. And if you read the Greek ancient histories, it'll tell you that very same thing. And when they use the word apostello, it meant someone was sent out with divine authority. Caesar was considered what in the Roman society? God. And when he sent somebody, apostle, out, that was somebody who was sent with a tremendous amount of power and authority. Okay? Tremendous amount of power and authority. He had authority from divine sources. And that's what's going to happen here. Jesus is going to appoint apostles. And the church had to exist for him to put the apostles in the church. So the church was already in existence here in Luke, the 9th chapter. That's simple, isn't it? How many of you got pockets? Would you put your hands in your pockets? Okay. Now, if you don't have a pocket, you can't put your hand in it. As simple as that, huh? All right? So you got to have a pocket, put a hand in it. So was there a church there when Jesus put the apostles in it? Had to be. That's real elementary, isn't it? And he called 12 together and gave them authority over all demons and to heal diseases. What is a demon? Daimonia. 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 What does that mean? Marilyn, what do you mind what that means? Marilyn. Little God. And when you say little God, it doesn't mean they're God, but they're what? They're supernatural beings. They're beyond the natural world. We are natural people. We live in a natural world. This is supernatural, which super means what? It means beyond natural, beyond physical, that we understand. So these are supernatural. And he gave them power, authority, over all supernatural beings. These spirits and demons. Now let me explain a little bit that to you also. Now, many people, when they start teaching about angels, they miss a boat. All right? Now, man is triune, and angels are made in the somewhat image of God, aren't they? They're supernatural, aren't they? Here we have angels, and angels come from angelos. What is the Hebrew word for angel? Melech. All right? Melech. Melech. That's it. All right, in Hebrew. Now, there are basically, as far as we can deduct or deduce, there are three categories of angels, regular angels. Now, there are seraphim and cherubim and all this other stuff, too, that we don't even know about. Okay? We don't know a lot of that about this. But there are three orders of angels and probably three archangels. What's archangel mean?
Head angel.
Huh? Head angels. Okay? And in this angelic sphere, there are angels and there are spirits. Don't get spirits and angels mixed up because they are not the same party. They are not in the same group. Spirits don't have form. Say this. Spirits don't have form. Angels can take form. You can see angels. You cannot see spirits. Okay? Spirits have to borrow something to be seen. Okay? We have, what are the names of the angels? Gabriel.
Michael.
And Mike. Okay, Michael.
And Lucifer.
And what?
Lucifer.
And Lucifer. Now, we know that there are other angels in the Bible. We know that there's others. There's a lot of angels. There's millions of angels. And there's millions of spirits. Okay? Millions of spirits. There's a lot of books written about all this kind of stuff. In the seminary, I used to teach pneumatology. You know what's pneumatology? the study of spirits, and angelology, the study of angels. And I taught it from the Hebrew and Greek standpoint, all right, and from the Hebrew rabbinical, and from the book of Enoch, and from the book of what we call Sefer HaYashur, the book of Jasher, okay? Now, Gabriel is over what realm of angels? What do they do in that realm?
Communication?
They communicate. Gabriel communicates. How about Lucifer? What realm is Lucifer over, or was he over?
Material.
The material realm, the physical realm. If you've got a guardian angel in the material world, it is from this group of angels. And I'm not telling you Lucifer's over them. Okay? Now, according to the Bible, what percentage of angels fell? 33 and 1/3% of them fell. So that means that 66 and 2/3 of them are still doing all right. Okay? And they're following God. But maybe a third of these fell, and a third of these fell, and a third of these fell. Now, if you've got a guardian angel, it comes from Lucifer's realm. If you got any information given to you, where does it come from? What realm?
Michael.
Gabriel's realm. Okay? Now, what is the spiritual realm? Michael's realm. Okay? And that is basically the most powerful realm also. Now, we have got spirits and we've got angels. And we're talking about here, now we don't have angels here that we're dealing with, but we got spirits. We've got daimonia. And we've got spirits, which is, what are the two words for spirits in Greek? Greek spirits. What's the word for spirit in Greek? Pneumo, or pneuma, or pneumatos. Okay? And in Greek, ruah. And how many of you ever used pneumatic tools? What is a pneumatic tool? Air-powered tool. Okay? Have you ever done that, Brother Isaiah? You've used air tools. Okay? The word pneuma and ruah both means air, spirit. Because you see things, wind moves things, doesn't it? But you don't really see the wind except the dust it picks up. It makes itself visible. Okay? The same thing in the spirit world. Well, the angels are physical. Every time you see an angel in the Bible, it's either got wings, like there on the cherubim over the Ark of the Covenant. And we know Lucifer had wings. He's a cherub. He's a cherubim. Okay? All of these have form. They have form. But spirits don't have form. What do spirits do, Joanne? Do you remember? What do spirits do? What do they seek? They seek to dwell in what? Human or animal flesh. Human or animal. Remember when we just studied about the pigs? Where did the spirits want to go? They wanted to go dwell in the pigs. They were dwelling in one man before that. That guy had a lot of spirits in him. Bad spirits. And they went into 2,000 swine. And the swine jumped into the Sea of Galilee because they didn't want to live after the spirits came, after these demon spirits came into them.
The good spirits live in indwelling.
When we are saved, we have Spirit God dwelling in us. A lot of people out there are lost in the world. They're born with the spirit of Adam, which is what is Adamic, which is evil. Okay, rebellious. It makes you a liar. It makes you a thief. It makes you do all kinds of bad things. That spirit does. But when Spirit God comes in there, that spirit goes out. Then you're sealed with the Spirit of God, and that Spirit of God dwells in you. But are there people that are indwelled by spirits of Satan, demon spirits? We know that. How many people are very powerful in history that were bad? How many people was Jim Jones over? Remember that deal, that fiasco? Killed a lot of people, didn't he? How about that old boy that lived out there by Death Valley? What was his name?
Manson.
Huh? Charles Manson. You know that the guards that guard him are afraid of him because there's evil lurking in that. That man's got evil in him. When they walk into his presence, they say their hair stands on end. When that guy dies, watch out. Whew, those spirits are going someplace. Legion may have had nothing on him. Okay? This is for real. This is real stuff now. This isn't make-believe. Okay? Spirits seek to dwell in human or animal flesh. That's not angels. That's spirits. Okay? They're different. But in the Gabriel realm, if you get communication from an evil spirit, what realm was that spirit in? That was in Gabriel's realm. All of these people that have founded false religions, what spirit realm do you think those come from? Michael's, the fallen spirit from his realm. And what about in the physical world? In the physical world. That's Michael's. Those are the evil ones. I think maybe all of these spirits are in the abyss because they're so evil. Those are the ones that's going to be turned out on mankind during the tribulation period. They're kept in jail. Brother Mike.
What do good spirits do? If you have guardian angels, are the good angels, and bad ones, and demons are the bad, evil spirits. What do good spirits do?
I think they comfort you.
We have guardian angels or guardian spirits?
We have guardian angels. But spirits minister also. Ministering spirits in the Bible. They're ministering spirits and ministering angels. Did you ever get an idea out of nowhere? A good one? I need to tell you what, some of these guys get some bad ideas, don't they? My stepdaddy was set up all night long figuring out how in the world that he's going to rob somebody in some way. And he had a lot of inspiration, and I know where that inspiration came from. It wasn't from God. It wasn't from God's realm at all. Thank you for your attention today. We'll go on from there next week. All right? We'll go on from there. We're going to start back out here with the 9th chapter. Thank you for being here. Thank you, all of you people coming in, all of our visitors. Thank you for being here. Brother David, I'll be here at 4:30 this afternoon teaching on the wild book of Exodus. And I mean, we're right in the miracles of Aaron and Moses in Egypt. And watch out, because there's some big stuff in there.
Okay, yes? Oop. We have an announcement.
You want me to just give